Alright, here's wood we're going to be using. I got 4 maple cookies. Got them on the table here with the woodpecker's router sled. Got everything fastened down. Got some shims in place. You want to make sure everything's nice and solid here. And let's get started. Alright, we are done flattening slabs. It was probably about 3 hours out of my life spread out over a couple days here, doing little by little. Looking good though. Alright, we got the workshop cleaned up. About a half an hour with the leaf blower did the trick. So we got our cookies here flattened out. Next thing we need to do is we need to clean up the edges. So we're going to use a grinder for that. Then we're going to take a router and clean up some of these cracks and get that all sorted out. Alright, so again, what I'm doing here, apologize for the fan in the background, it's just hoping blow some of this dust out of the garage. I'm going to take a router, get some of this stuff out of here. Some of the cracks, I'm going to clean that up so it looks a little nicer. Get some rounder lines instead of those hard cracks. I usually go in, you'll see the after, a little further just to try to prevent that from cracking anymore. Same with over here, we'll clean some of this up. Some of that might break off in the process, but that's okay. But again, just kind of get some of this loose stuff out of there. All right. As you can see, just taking these hairline cracks and just rounding them out. It's going to look a lot nicer. It'll allow some resin to go in there, give it a real nice kind of like splash of color, but also strengthen up the wood a little bit. A lot of times it helps those hairline cracks from getting a little worse. So we've got some old bark in there. Just going to take a chisel, try to clean that up a little more. And we'll decide a little later which side is going to be the top and the bottom. So 3 more to go. Alright, we got everything cleaned up. As you can see, that looks a lot nicer than just little hairline cracks. And getting rid of some of those sharp edges. So I'm just going to hit it with the sander real quick. Got a little sanding wheel. Just kind of clean up some of these lines from the router. And maybe hit the sides one more time. Alright, this isn't working as well as I thought to get some of these marks out of there from the router sled. So I'm going to burn it through the drum sander instead. we got our pieces sanded. Pick it up here. Looks a lot nicer now. Got some dust in there still. We got our mold here. This is going to be 2 end tables, 24 by 24 inches each. So I'm going to do 1 piece, 1 pour, and then basically I'm going to just slice it right down the middle. That way they kind of match up as well if you put them together. So at this point, I got to figure out how I'm going to arrange these in the mold. I'm going to have to slice a couple ends off to get it to flush, fit flush up against the edges, the corners, things like that. So that's what I'm going to do now. All right, I'm gonna run that over the joiner real quick just so I can fix that. It's a lot better now. So here's what I got with the first piece. And I got a few more pieces to fit in. Sometimes it's like playing a little bit of Tetris here. Fits good. I'm going to assume that when I pour it in from the top, some of that's going to seep down to these other parts here. That's why I'm taping this up. All right, let's mix up a little bit of resin. I'm gonna vacuum this out, get the dust out of here. I'm gonna pour the resin in here, or leave the wood in the mold. That way if things leak out or anything like that, the mess is contained. So I'm going to spray a little bit of mold release in there as well, just because I have no doubt something's going to leak and make a mess. Alright, be right back. So I'm doing 2 different colors. So 16 ounces in each one there. Another 16 ounces.
Can I pour some in there?
What?
Can I pour some in there?
Go slow. Like I said, go slow.
It went in.
Got a couple tiny little cracks I'm gonna just dribble it on. Alright, all this is clear. My apologies for the fan. I got that on because I'm gonna need it here in a sec. Everything's dry here. I'm gonna take these out and check out the bottom. Alright, so here's one of the pieces. I got some of the tape off. I kind of started doing that before I turned the camera on. Overall it looks pretty good. Looks like most of it kind of seeped through the cracks. We got a couple spots where it didn't go in. Parts like this, no big deal. We'll get that when we do the base layer for the mold. Stuff like this, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little bit of a lip where it kind of protrudes out. So I'm going to take a grinder, I'm going to grind this off so we keep this level. We got to get all this tape off the sides as well before we do our main pour. So I'm going to do that for all of these pieces. Yes, I'm doing it on the back of my pickup truck. Why? Because guys do stuff on the back of their pickup truck. Also, this is going to make a gigantic mess, and any additional dust I can keep outside versus in my garage kind of sounds like a win to me. Grinder does a real good job of getting the tape off and kind of just trying to get everything level. So this will sit in my mold level again. So we'll be back. All right, we back to working on our table here. Got these, the backs of all these kind of cleaned off. It's not perfect, but doesn't have to be right now. Got a couple spots the epoxy didn't go to. That should fill in when we do the base pour. You'll see in a little bit. This isn't perfectly smooth, sanded. Don't worry about it. We got the main lumps off, so it's still gonna sit level. When this is all done, we're gonna run this through the router sled, top and bottom, so you'll have a chance to kind of smooth all that off then. Oops. Don't need a ton. Just enough to try to stop that resin from sneaking through, which it likes to do. All right, we got our mold cleaned out, got it siliconed in. Spray some mold release. Usually comes out of this mold pretty easily, but never hurts to put a little in.
Give it a little more even pressure as well, which is always good.
All right, now comes the fun part. That's a nice one. All right, next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna super glue our starfish into place. If you don't, they will 100% float up through the epoxy.
I'm gonna mix up some more here real quick before I do that.
Problem with some of these shells is you gotta kind of like burp the bubbles out of them, get them to sink. All right, time to take it out of the mold. It's been sitting here drying for probably about a week now. There we go, that's a spot. Once you get it started, it normally pops pretty easily. Famous last words. There we go. Alright, here's the back. Had a bit more epoxy leak out than I was hoping for, but that's the way it goes sometimes. I got a few spots that are still going to need to be filled. And there were some spots that did get filled. Like that got filled from our pour. That's good. And here's the bottom. Yeah, pretty quick, actually. So we've got a couple spots we got to fill in with resin. We got this stuff kind of patched. I'm going to sand that down at the same time, just sand the whole bottom of this. I'm going to start with 120. Alright, we got the bottom sanded, got a quick water pop, sanded again. Still plenty of more work to do with that, but gonna go ahead and just slice it in half here, make it a little easier to work with. Alright, cut pretty nice. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run some of these edges on the joiner, just try to clean that up. The end that the track saw went through, that's obviously fine. You could put the track saw on here and just trim off the end, but I'm going to try the joiner. Alright, same thing I did on the bottom, just going to do on the top. I'm going to give it a just a quick sand in here, get that started. Alright, I got this sanded pretty good. It's only 120 grit right now. I'm not going to lie, it's probably a good hour of sanding to get those lines out of here from the router sled. I took a probably good at least 1/4 inch off the top of here when I was doing the router sled and the sanding and all that. So I opened up, or I shouldn't say maybe opened up, but exposed a couple soft spots, some holes, some cracks, things like that that I want to go ahead and fill in. So I got a little bit of a tabletop epoxy mixed up with my Okinawa blue, and I'm just gonna kind of pour that on all the wood, try to get that to kind of just seep into these little cracks, holes, things like that, and hopefully also just kind of just soak into the wood and help seal it a little bit. So I'm gonna do it to both pieces. You don't need a lot, and I purposely went just a real thin layer because I'm gonna end up sanding this again to get everything just right. I'm just trying to get it to, like I said, just soak into these cavities and so forth. Don't need any on the clear epoxy. Alright, we're back again. Our resin went ahead and dried all up. Instead of having y'all watch me sand for 2 hours, I figured I'd just go ahead and knock that out. Took that layer off with the Rotex. Started with 80 grit, then went to 100, and then just hit it with 120 with the smaller 5-inch. So it looks real good. How well that shows that we got little bits of that blue just kind of popping out of all of our little cracks and stuff. And other ones right here. Yeah, hopefully you can see just some of the rings that's even in there. So I got high hopes this is going to look real good when it's all done. So we're going to carry on with the sanding process, and we'll be back once we get to the polishing. Alright, one is done. A little bit of mineral oil. And we'll finish it up with some Odie's oil at the very end. Alright, we're at that point where we're ready to put the legs on. We already oiled the table. I got some Odie's oil buffed in. We got these legs here. Pretty self-explanatory, just gonna screw them into place. I'm gonna drill a little pilot hole where I'm putting the screws first. Some of these, like for example here, I got some resin in some of the corners. I'm not gonna drill into the resin. You can, but at least with this particular piece, if you do that, you're gonna have these screws sticking out basically into your pretty beach scene. So I got enough wood to anchor these in. There's a couple, I got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 6 holes in each of these. There's a couple of these legs where I'm not gonna have 6 screws just because of the resin, but should be fine. Alright, to try to have a little bit of a gauge on how far I'm drilling in here, I'm gonna use a little piece of tape. Tape that onto the bit. Want a little bit of room at the end just for it to bite in all the way, and obviously that's going to take a little bit of space. But now I know just to drill to that tape line. That's how deep I want to go in. Alright, getting ready to screw the legs in. One thing I did, or had an idea, is I took a little bit of clear silicone and put on the parts of the resin where these legs are going to be, just to try to give that a little little more stability, just kind of hold it in place a little bit better. If you're going to do that, make sure there's no oil, wax, anything like that on here, just so that the silicone sticks a little better. So here I got this area bolted down pretty good, but I just don't have a way of securing this real well. So I think that silicone will help just give it a little more stability.